I wound up getting introduced to the great Martin Eberhard, the original founder of Tesla.
Yeah.
And innocently enough, we sat down to lunch, and 3 hours later, we were more or less committing to starting a business together.
Wow.
On an idea that he and his design partner in Germany, a guy by the name of Heiner Faes, a really great automotive engineer, they had designed a system, and they wanted to create a company to popularize this notion of chassis, which were designed so that they could receive an even number of slide-in modules that were battery modules that were slid in on either side of the vehicle, 6, 8, 10, 12 of them.
So we're talking like swappable batteries.
Swappable batteries, and a vehicle which was designed with a cover that could be open to accommodate the occasional replacement of those batteries. Not to recharge the battery. So not at the end of a long trip or in the middle of a long trip, but rather during the life of the vehicle. So as we all know, batteries degrade over time. So goes the theory that over time, we're going to have a population of less and less usable and lower range products.
Yeah.
And the vehicle itself, so went the thesis ought to be designed with that in mind. As it stands right now, batteries are they're encapsulated in layers and layers of plastic and metal and glue and all sorts of other things. They're incredibly, if not impossible, to remove from a vehicle if for any reason they ever need to be replaced or upgraded. So it is one of the very expensive next horizon problems that the electric vehicle industry is already dealing with, as you've seen vehicles get to their decade or their 15-year close to end of life or end of a convenient life phase. And getting out ahead of that problem would call for a redesign of the chassis itself. A lot of other benefits come along with that, including, as we witnessed in the marketplace, this collision-based or sometimes even charging event-based fire risks. If you have chambers that separate the flammable mass of that battery into smaller units, the risk of cell to cell and entire propagation across an entire battery unit is greatly reduced. That's especially true in collision events where you've seen all the YouTube videos, and it's neither good for the industry nor is it safe for the user. So for all these reasons, this new approach, this new architecture for an electric vehicle battery, as it's installed and maintained inside the vehicle and redesigned for that sort of purpose, was the thesis for the company itself. We called it Inevit. As in Inevitable. The first part of it, inevitable, that the E and the V in there were made for a nice little branding accent.
Right.
And we decided to go ahead and bootstrap that company, the three of us, and start work with OEMs to popularize the concept. The first of those was Audi, where that team already had a pretty deep set of relationships. But it was one of those ideas that, I think came ultimately, not to be an integratable element in the business models for most of these OEMs, where those kinds of innovations are not exactly what they want to see popularized or standardized across an industry. They see and saw the battery as something where their innovation,
it's proprietary,
their proprietary competitive advantage was going to be what makes the day, or what makes for a truly differentiated, popular product.
So that explains the current sort of infrastructure decision, the prevailing wisdom that the battery skate is fully encased and it is proprietary, sort of, yeah.
But you asked the question, sometimes are these one way or another? Are they binary successes or binary failures? Along the way, we actually found one strategic, and it was a pure play electric vehicle manufacturer. It was based on and funded by a Chinese automobile manufacturer, but it was a pure play EV startup in Silicon Valley.
Oh wow!
And they became very intrigued with what we were doing, and ultimately, while we were still 20 patents, bootstrapped, personal funding, they came with an offer to buy the company for $33 million, which we negotiated a sale for and closed on in 2017.
That sounds like going from failure to success.
There were certain elements of both involved in the story. Now,
because
over time,
I just want to get a sense of scale, though, because Martin was like the original or one of the original founders of Tesla, certainly like the original CEO. I am certain that his concept of scale and yours coming from Obvious was not a $33 million business opportunity, right? It was, it had a B behind it, I'm sure, maybe a T. So I can appreciate that while 33 million for many entrepreneurs sounds like a great outcome, it is a down round in many venture scale ventures.
That's right. And the sort of the terms of engagement here with our acquirer included our plan to market that innovation to the rest of the market. So that's an unusual approach.
Wow.
For OEMs in the space. So they were perfectly willing to support that. There were, let's just say, a number of other incompatibilities that resulted in our deciding sometime later to spin that company back out of SF Motors into a company that we labeled Tivani, which, if you're watching the letters, is simply Inevit turned backwards.
Turned around.
That's right. And SF Motors itself then seeded us with an additional $10 million to keep on pursuing the business.
Amazing.
And I think a part of that was realizing that there was a fundamental incompatibility. And that our association with one electric vehicle manufacturer made us a bit suspect as a platform play. Right. So yes, we still had that ambition, and we ultimately prevailed in allowing our corporate parent to allow us to go pursue that dream with additional funding.
I'd love to have at some point a conversation with you and Martin about the whole, that whole story in and of itself. But is Tivani still operable? Is it still a dream pursued?
So this gets us back to, sometimes you have success and failure, and sometimes they're wrapped up in the same little ball. That $10 million allowed us to continue building the company, building infrastructure, and bringing a number of other customers and partners into the fold. But we were pursuing a B round several years later with proofs of concept with Cummins and a number of other OEMs and tier one suppliers in the last mile delivery truck space, where we found this particular concept was especially appealing. And as we cruised into the closing stages of a Series B, the date there was April of 2020.
Oh.
And I'm not sure if you remember, but a couple of things were happening in the world just about then.
Yeah, mildly chaotic time.
And yes, and one of those was a very deep, profound impact on venture capital and venture capital willingness. So we lost prospective leads for our Series B, and found ourselves desperately trying to hang on to an engineering team that was core to our value. And in the hiatus between losing one and gaining indication of interest from another lead, we lost most of that engineering team.
Oh.
Which changed my problem set from fund the company to find a good home for the technology. Okay. So you asked, is it still a going concern? It's not. Mm-hmm. It resulted then in an IP sale to American Battery Systems, which bought the IP of the company. And so it and these ideas, they live on. They do have new owners, but I think it's a good example of you can't call the timing for things, and many times if you're lucky enough to be around for a while, you're going to have multiple opportunities for just secular bad timing to go ahead and affect and sometimes terminate the dream for your startup. But the job is you take that in stride, you dust yourself off, you learn what can be learned, and you move on.